The United States represents about 4% of the world's consumers, even though we consume about 26% of the world's goods and services. Having said that, about 96% of the world is overseas and therefore potential for us. So international trade is extremely important to all parts of the United States, including Arlington. While we in Arlington have had local businesses and educators use overseas resources such as manufacturing people in China, actually having outreach programs from UTA in China and in Brazil, we haven't really made a focus of international trade in the city. So therefore, the Chamber and its policy project put together a task force of community leaders and businessmen, educators, actual advocates for overseas, and some individuals who had backgrounds in international trade and international work, such as myself. And we studied the issue for several weeks and came up with several recommendations. Our recommendations focused on creating jobs in Arlington, really economic development. So our recommendations all centered around that as the ultimate goal of what we were trying to do. When we looked at Arlington in relation to the international marketplace, we thought that the city and the Chamber should reenact trade missions back to such countries as China and Brazil, India, maybe Mexico, try to reintroduce Arlington to these countries. Now, to do that, we needed to put together a dossier of why Arlington. And what I mean by that is Arlington has several advantages as it relates to its location, the state that we're in that has no state income taxes, our relatively inexpensive cost of living, and a number of other items. But more importantly, when you go overseas to, say, China and go to a Chinese city, they have everything prepared for the foreign businessman arriving. When you arrive, they will tell you where you can locate your plant, what your manufacturing people, where they will come from, where your kids can go to school. Everything laid out, making it very, very easy for the international investors through China to decide what they should do and where they should go. We need to do exactly the same thing here in Arlington. So if a Chinese businessman would arrive at Arlington's doorstep, we ought to have prepared the benefits of Arlington, what I just mentioned, plus where could he send his children to school? Where would they go to church? Where would they be located housing-wise? What other assistance could they get from us, in addition to maybe putting them in the incubator, for example, but also adding to their incubator power local accountants, local lawyers, local real estate agents, other individuals that could help them ease into Arlington, and that would impress the international investors. So potentially, businesses from China and Brazil and India could be huge potential employers in our little city here in Arlington, and we ought to take advantage of that. But in addition to being future employers and therefore job creators, they also are a great source of capital. It's probably little known that people like companies or investors in India and in Brazil and in China are looking for places to deploy capital. And if we could access that, then that could give us some of the additional capital we need to go ahead and start local businesses. So, we've talked about establishing trade missions, developing a why Arlington approach to people that arrive on our shores, what be they investors or potential employers, and also, organizing ourselves locally to get accountants, lawyers, and others to be at the ready for people. But how to accomplish this, frankly, is requiring of somebody we refer to as an international czar, an individual that would be paid out of the funds that would accrue from additional businesses and additional investments, that is, the local community, but whose sole job would be to ensure that these things get done. We all know that unless there's someone who has the responsibility for focusing on, in this case, international trade, international businesses, and international investments, it just won't get done. So our final and probably most important recommendation is that we appoint an international czar, maybe to be co-located in the Center for Integration, much like Sergio Bento does for technology, to make this a reality.